Entering documentation. We're going to show you two progress notes entered in the system, both on the same patient, but one from the surgeon and one from the attending physician itself. Going to the patient list, this patient's on our list. We'll highlight them itself, click on document. We get our list of templates. I'll go ahead and I can click twice on the progress note, or I can click once and click OK. I'll go ahead and double click on this. We'll click inside the subjective and type in here. Okay, these large context areas have a spell check available. This blue check mark will go and do spell checking. It does have Stedman's medical dictionary built into it itself, so it will do spell check on medical terms. Clicking on objective at the top automatically goes and begins to pull clinical data. So vital signs, intake and output will begin to pull in here. You'll notice that the CBC and the BMP diagrams are here as well for the patient. And then we have current medications listed right now. Underneath the objective data is diagnostic data. Any impressions from radiology would automatically pull forward if they've been done in the past 24 hours. Physical exam. This is an area where physical exam can be documented. Some physicians will use these queries, the checkboxes that are available. Other physicians will go ahead and free text in the actual physical exam. I'll show you an example of that. Clicking in this free text area here with the little period above gets me the can text box. I can click on text in the upper right. I can try and find physical exam. So as an example, there's one built for Dr. Blinchick currently. There's one built for Dr. Lin. If I were to go and look at Dr. Blinchick's as an example, I can check mark, click on insert. This is an example of how a physical exam can be built. We build these specifically for physicians. They will tell us their normal physical exam, and then once you pull it into your note itself, you can come here and you can make a modification to an area of the physical exam. You can alter the text for any of these as necessary itself. So this is an example of how that can be done. The final thing on the progress note is the A&P, the assessment and plan. Clicking on this brings me directly to the assessment and plan. It is going to point directly to the problem list. So clicking on the problem list here shows me that there are 4 problems that have been previously documented, possibly through the admission process itself, the H&P by the attending physician. So in addition to these problems here, the surgeon identifies that there are additional problems that need to be added that have been identified via the process of assessing the patient and also taking them to surgery. So clicking add problems in the bottom right will take me to the area where I can add problems. The first one that I want to add is I want to add appendicitis. So just type APP, filters out the list. I see appendicitis here. I'll go ahead and check mark it. I also want to type in here that the patient had an exploratory laparotomy. So just typing lap finds the laparotomy. Go ahead and click that. I also want to type in here that the patient had an appendectomy and choose that. And then finally the last one is we had some abscesses. So let's do drainage of abscess and then also type the abscess as well. We'll do a general abscess because the one specifically that I'm looking for is not there. So you'll notice at the top here it added the 5 problems, 2 of them to the medical list, appendicitis and the abscess. 3 of them were added to the surgical list automatically. So clicking on OK adds those directly to the list itself. Now our surgeon will document the things that the surgeon wants to document towards itself in relation to their progress note. So I'm going to go ahead and document towards the small bowel obstruction. So I'm going to check mark that. I'm going to go ahead and document towards the appendicitis, the abscess, as well as the 3 surgical problems as well. So 3 medical problems, 3 surgicals. By check marking these, I'm documenting the problems that I want to document towards on my progress note. The patient does have these 3 problems here as well, the hypothyroidism, hypokalemia, and hypocalcemia. However, the surgeon is not addressing those on their documentation itself. So the surgeon is going to, once those are check marked itself, we will click on details above. These now bring in those problems directly into my note itself. Each of them is identified with the blue label here. I can put in a comment if I want to, status, onset date, as well as this A&P, which is the assessment and plan. So the first thing I want to do is I want to sort of take these and reorder them. Right now it has the small bowel obstruction at the very top. I'm going to actually take my laparotomy and click this little radio button. I want to bring that to the very top. So what I'm going to do is clicking the radio button gives me these arrows at the very top of the screen. I can move them up one, I can move them down one, I can move them down to the very bottom. That's this one arrow down with a line. I can also move it to the very top, arrow up with a line. I'll go ahead and click on arrow up to the with a line to move it to the very top itself. The next one is the drainage. I want to make that second. So again, up here. And now instead of doing the arrow to the top, I'm just going to do arrow up. And it keeps cycling up itself. And it is now number 2. So laparotomy, the drainage, and then the appendectomy. I'm going to go ahead and move that up as well. So 3 clicks, and it is now number 3. All right, and then I'm going to leave my problems like they are, the small bowel obstruction, the appendicitis, and the abscess there. So clicking on the exploratory laparotomy, let's see here. Let's go ahead and click on the assessment and plan. So let's just put here status post. Exploratory laparotomy, release of small bowel obstruction. And I'll go ahead and click on OK. Drainage of the abscess. Let's go ahead and click on the assessment and plan there. Let's go ahead and type here. Drainage of retroperitoneal and pelvic abscess. Go ahead and click OK. Alright, and what we're going to do is that on each of these surgical ones here, I'm going to go ahead and type in what my plan is going to be here. So continue, NPO, NGT, continue, IV antibiotics, check culture, hydrate. Alright, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of these with my mouse. I can then with my mouse right click with my mouse. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. That way I don't have to type it on each of the actual problems themselves. And I can right click and paste. Let's click OK. Let's go back to our appendicitis. Right click, paste. And click OK. Just go down to our small bowel obstruction. Type that in for the small bowel obstruction. Click OK. Let's go to the appendicitis. Paste that. And then finally our assessment and plan. Paste that. Alright, so that's an example of going in, filling in information related to the problems itself, resorting the problems, adding information such as assessment and plan. If I had an onset date, I could come in here and put that as well as the status for the laparotomy. Let's go ahead and say that that was acute. For the drainage, acute. Appendectomy, acute. Let's go ahead and on the onset date, the date of surgery was yesterday, the 25th for each of these. So let's go ahead and just mark that on the 25th for each of these. And now we're done. So clicking on OK. And then the final thing with the progress notes itself is to click submit. It'll actually open up the note so that I can see it. This is what my note is going to look like itself. So my subjective, what I typed, my objective, which is the clinical data, vitals, INO, the labs, medications. Here is my PE for the patient, and then here is the problem list, which basically is my assessment and plan for the patient. Last thing I'll do is sign my note at the very bottom, enter my PIN number, and it's finalized. So that's entering the note from the surgeon's perspective itself. So the next thing we want to do is actually go into the system and add a note as the actual attending physician itself. So let's go ahead and leave the system as that physician. And we'll go ahead and enter the system as the actual attending. I'll go back to my patient list and find them. Click on document. Now, since there's been a document that's previously been done, I don't see my templates initially. I see the ones that have been put on file. To get to my templates, simply click Enter New. I'll see my templates. I'll open up a progress note. I'll go in and type in my subjective for the attending. Patient states abdominal pain is controlled. We'll click on objective. Now, I'm basically getting the same type of objective here because there's significantly no difference between the time when the surgeon did their note as well as the time I'm doing my note. If there was a difference, if the vitals have been updated, the INO or recent labs have been updated as well, it will pull in the latest information for each of those itself. This note behaves exactly the same. Alright, and I'm not going to do a PE on this one here, I'm just going to go straight to assessment and plan. Now for the attending physician, on their assessment and plan, they may not be addressing each of these as the surgeon was itself. So on the assessment, I'm going to do small bowel obstruction, the hypothyroidism, hypokalemia, and hypocalcemia. So choosing those for itself, clicking on details, allows me to sort these. I'm going to go ahead and leave them in this order right now. I'm going to go ahead and click on the assessment and plan for the small bowel obstruction and type in here, what is the assessment and plan? So okay, there's my plan and assessment. Let's go to the hypothyroidism. The hypokalemia. And finally the hypocalcemia. And the final thing we'll do is click on submit like we did with our surgeon, review the note, click on signed, enter the PIN number for the attending physician. So now what we have is we have two independent notes done by physicians themselves. They both are accessing the problem list of the patient. They both have independent documentation in the system itself. So this is how progress notes can be done by physicians utilizing the problem list.